Greetings to all of my learned magic friends out there. My name is Jeff Kowalk and you are watching Erudite Magic. I'm so glad you're here to join me to have another discussion about our beloved magic books. Oh, well, you're wondering about these. Well, I'm getting ready to have something done which requires me to wear my glasses, so you'll have to bear with me on that. I hope it makes me look slightly more erudite than I otherwise do. Today we have an exciting episode. We're going to talk a little bit about creativity in magic, and I think one of the jumping off points for this discussion is going to be Kyle Littleton's Shattered Porcelain. This book is brand new, hot off the press. I bought it directly from Kyle, so I did not get this as a review copy. I purchased it because I want to support young artists who are publishing their magic in the printed word. If you've attended Magi Fest, then you've probably seen Kyle there. He does some work with the youth as well as is around the convention or working at the Vanishing Inc booth. He's done a lecture. You probably know him best for his 400 Lux, as well as some other tricks that he's put out through Vanishing Inc. And I know that some of you have expressed interest in this book, so let's dive into it. The book is soft bound in a kind of a rubbery texture, which I happen to like. It's full color and highly artistic. It's approximately 126 pages, but that may not mean what you think it means. We'll talk about that. Everything was hand illustrated by Kyle, and most of these things are the type of imagination material that you would find from a journal. There are essentially 7 effects with 2 small essays from the fertile mind of Kyle Littleton. If I had to sum up what this book is in a nutshell, I would basically say that it is a coffee table book of magic strange. Most of the tricks in the book are relatively simple, and Kyle tells you up front he's not interested in providing you with a ton of presentational ideas. He really just wants to provide you with an idea for the effect and just the basics of how to perform it so that you'll have to go through on your own to develop your own mechanics and specifics of where you're going to put things and how your hands move and what you're going to say. So everything is very bare bones. We'll talk more about that in a minute. If you haven't already, you need to check out my YouTube community page because I will post behind the scenes type footage and ask you, my erudite viewers, questions about what you want to see. Many of you responded to my question about this book. James Kelsey asks, what kind of audience is the material made for? Is it mostly close-up, stage, or a mix? The book is slightly a mix. I would suggest that a lot of it is for close-up and or slightly parlorish type material. In fact, I thought it might be helpful if I told you a little bit about each of the 7 effects that are in this book. In the opening effect banana, the performer takes a watch and with just a shake of their wrist, it changes into a full-sized banana. Yep, that's it. In duct tape, the performer tears some duct tape off of a roll, and when the performer does so, it changes into a rubber duck. Flip book is a very significant chunk of this book that is kind of a transposition of one card that someone has selected. You've held it up and showed it to everyone. You've put it into the deck, and when you push it into the deck with your left hand, it appears in the right hand, which was not close to the deck. Tongue is another transposition type effect where the performer has a glass of milk. They take an Oreo, they go to dunk it in the milk, and upon dunking it, they realize that they have their tongue in their hand, and when they open their mouth, the Oreo cookie is in their mouth in the place of their tongue, and of course everything goes back as it should and they're able to eat the cookie. Socks is a very specific routine where the performer has a hole in their sock, and by reaching down they're able to pluck the hole off and restore their sock. In coffee, the performer takes a cup of coffee, blows on the coffee, and the coffee turns into some beans. When the performer blows on the beans, they end up turning into cherries from whence the beans came from. And finally, in eggs, the performer cracks some eggs into a cold frying pan, takes an app from their phone with a fire, waves it under the pan, and the eggs cook in the otherwise cold pan. There are 2 small essays in the book that I think are good. They don't span multiple pages, they're not super long or difficult to read, but but they do convey Kyle's thinking about certain subjects that are important for him to share with you as the reader. So I've told you a little bit about what the book is. What is it not? It is not a detailed instruction book. That brings me to another question that someone asked. Justin Ingram says, is it easy to understand and are the tricks explained well enough? The format is original, but how are the effects? So let's talk about that for a second. The book is not a detailed instruction manual of magic. It's more of a high level that Kyle specifically wanted people to know the basics and not have a full in-depth discussion of why the trick works or the psychology or the placement of your hands or the patter or what misdirection covers what. There isn't any of that. Everything is shown and described with just a couple of hand drawings. Most of the effects are a few pages at most. Many of the descriptions are in text callouts like speech bubbles, or sometimes they're hidden in the picture themselves in extremely tiny print. You will likely need one of these. In fact, if you have a hard time reading small print, this book is not for you. I think at the end, Kyle gives you a glimpse into what he was attempting to do. He says that magic should be something special and not necessarily something practical. Whether something packs small and plays big is relatively irrelevant in the discussion of magic, and I think he set about to create a book that illustrates this in a very visceral way. The cartoons are quirky and slightly oddball. Most of the presentations are offbeat, and he tells you that he specifically came up with a weird story to try to relay the information so that you wouldn't try to copy the way he's presenting the information. He really wants you to take the magic and make it yours. And I certainly applaud him for that effort. I think that every act of creation, whether it's making a YouTube video, publishing a book, or whatever, requires a certain amount of bravery. You're putting yourself out there, you're making yourself vulnerable, you're offering up your creative efforts for other people to judge and to decide whether it's for them or not. And that leaves you feeling vulnerable because you don't know if it will be accepted by others. You're forced to show up as who you are in that moment. And I applaud Kyle for doing that with this magic book. The cost is $30 shipped from Vanishing Inc. right now. I'm not aware if others will be distributing this. I know that Kyle was offering it by himself for a little while, and now that it has hit a second printing, Vanishing Inc. is making it available in somewhat limited quantities from their website. I will post a link down below so that you know where you can find it. Really, if I had to summarize, I think that this book is a rebellion against the practical. Frankly, I didn't read anything that I'm going to be adding to my act. But what I did get out of the book was some inspiration that my art and my magic has to be a representation of me and who I am. What kind of messages am I wanting to convey to an audience? What things are important enough for me to put the effort into communicating to an audience? I really can't say that I have any other books like this in my collection. I really don't think this is going to be for everyone. I think that if you're the kind of person that gets inspired by art, or you like offbeat, off-the-wall thinking, stuff that's going to make you think and not necessarily be super practical for your own magical performances, then you'll probably get something out of this book and enjoy it. But if you're looking for more card tricks or different ways to do the pass, or even just looking for routines that will go straight into your act, you're probably going to want to pass on this one. I think Kyle would probably be the first to admit this book isn't for everyone, but it certainly offers something to everyone if they're willing to look for it. The last part of Justin Ingram's question was, overall, it's $30. Do you feel it's worth it? I think that worth and value are hard things to describe. I think that the majority of magic book purchasers that I know are going to want to pass on this one. Don't take that as a recommendation that I don't think there's anything worth it in this book. I found it to be interesting and insightful, but not in the way that a normal magic book would be interesting and insightful. I've already given you some of my thoughts and comments about how it can inspire you to elevate your magic and to communicate things that are important to you and give your audiences pictures that they'll remember, something special, not necessarily something practical. What do you think? Is it important to be more artistic and creative than practical in your magic? Or do you prefer something commercial? I think this is a really interesting discussion that needs to be fleshed out more. So let's have a conversation down below. Please give me your thoughts on the idea of creative and artistic versus commercial, and practical. I certainly appreciate you watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting on these videos. It's incredible to me that I have this opportunity to engage with other erudite magicians around the globe, and you do too if you participate here or on my community page, so please do that. I love to hear from you. I want to stop and thank my friend Blonid from Ireland, who wrote me a very, very nice note to tell me that she is my biggest fan. And I gotta tell you, I've never received any fan mail, so this was a real delight to receive a letter and to hear from another fan of magic books. So Blonid, I got your letter and I will be sending you something back, so thanks so much for writing me. Until next time, all my erudite friends, keep reading.